Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Hello and welcome to the Transcendence podcast. This is your host, Jessica Alstrom, and today I'm doing a podcast called Sex, Intimacy, and Manifestation, and how that basically is all intertwined in the creation of how we create our reality, generate our reality, and basically how the universe is formed and expanded through universal consciousness and unity. So first I'll explain why I'm doing this podcast. It's not random, actually. We have decided that in TICA, which is our Transcendence International Academy for Consciousness, that we are diving down deep into sacred sexuality. And in order to fully embody and become totally aware of our own sexuality, intimacy, and unity of self, we have to clear shadows, blind spots, and misconceptions about sexuality itself, intimacy, and the true meaning of that, and how manifestation ties into the grand scheme of basically the universe creating itself through divine expression. So just a little backstory of what we've been doing in class. These podcasts usually are quite intuitive as far as what we are going through collectively. And you'd think, okay, we're in the middle of, the planet moving into an uproar, and I'm rooting, and things are taking place all over the country where, people are speaking their truth, and there's an election that's going haywire, and why is she talking about sex? Well, I'm actually talking about sacral energy, and sacral energy is being cleared all throughout this planet right now. And sacral energy is basically the creative source of who you are as a being. It is the satellite system of your creativity, and it happens to be part of your chakra system. And so what your individual body holds, the universe holds itself, and this planet actually has its own chakra system as well. And we would call that the collective chakra system. So collectively, the world is processing a ton of sacral energy wounding, and we are clearing out millennia of trauma within our creative process, because sexuality, intimacy, and creation is not about traditional 3D sex. It is about creating. It is about expansion. It is about knowing thyself. And as we dive into this podcast today, I hope by the end of it, you look at your whole sexuality, intimacy, and your ability to create your own reality a little bit different, because it's time to get a little bit deeper with yourself and become more aware. You're not here for any other purpose besides self-realization. And self-realization is how well can you get to know you before this incarnation is over? How many pieces of your fractaled soul can you put back together and remember who you are and become whole with the idea that you are completely unlimited and all-knowing and as powerful as the universe itself? So let's dive in a little bit. First, let's start with sex, because sex holds probably the greatest amount of wounding that we hold individually on the planet. And not just because of your own personal experiences, but because of your collective belief system that we have on the planet of what sex means. Now, depending where you are in the world, your belief systems will change basically how you see sexuality and yourself within that category. But on a individual scale, what that actually means for you as having a DNA and a lineage and a bloodline and an ancestral and a galactic bloodline is you are also a collective of all you've been. And so you're not just a collective of this particular incarnation and the sexual experiences you've had and the intimate relationships that you've had, but you are a part of the whole. It is the whole second dynamic, which means basically the dynamic of one looking in the mirror and seeing itself, which is two. It is polarity. It is the shift. It is the reflection of the other side of yourself. And that's what sexuality is actually about. It's about a creative expression of one's own self, which means the art of making love is demonstrating who you really are and what you are through creative flow. And so as we start to clean up our own issues with our own sexuality, and we start to realize what love is and all we are is actually love, we can start clearing the trauma and the timelines of not just our stuff, but our family stuff, our lineages stuff, our bloodline, our ancestral bloodlines. And, you know, if you happen to have chosen a woman body in this incarnation, that you're also processing, you know, a really long pattern of repression and powerlessness. And so we demonstrate our power through different levels of our being. And as we move into 2017, what you're going to notice, and I've said this on many podcasts, is 2017 is the year of the goddess. The goddess is being reborn within each and every one of you, whether that's a male or female body that you hold. You will be expressing your divine creativity and your feminine energy that is creation itself, which means that you are here to create your life. And that's what goddess equals. It is the divine creation. Now, the masculine comes in because the masculine is the energy and the force behind the action of creation itself. So that is why you need both feminine and masculine to reproduce anything, including the universe, because it takes two opposing equal sides to create one. And as you look at an orgasm itself, you're looking at the masculine and feminine becoming one and having a divine expansive experience. And that is exactly what they talk about when they talk about the big boom. The big boom was in basically a universal orgasm that created its own identity through different particles and experiencing itself through different perspectives, both male, female, throughout the whole entire galaxy. Just like the sun represents the male and the moon represents the female, the universe itself is holding both sides of that coin so that it may know itself more clearly and have both sides of the story in order to become one. So I hope this is making sense, because what we're doing in class, first and foremost, what we do here at Tika is we are not teaching you to be a life coach. We are not teaching you anything. We are holding space, reminding you and holding you deeply accountable to your own personal responsibility of living and breathing as higher self. And higher self is all about that bigger part of you who completely remembers all and what you've been, and that will never be anything other than who you are. And so as we've embarked on this sexual journey in class, the root of sexuality itself is about manifestation. And so we just wrapped up a 4-week interlude of our manifestation powerhouse experiment that we did in class. And in order for my students to really understand truly how manifestation works, we need to actually dive into sexuality. Because realistically, if you study sacred energy and you study sacred knowledge, as far as especially Egyptians were quite famous for utilizing the sexual orgasm to create immortality, to create anti-aging processes, to create instant manifestation. And we know as we're moving into the fifth dimension that the manifestation is even more instant than it has ever been on this planet before. But if we understand that we can actually utilize our own personal orgasms to have a fast track of a manifestation process, then I am going to explain how all of that works by the end of this podcast. But in order for you to be able to utilize your own personal orgasm in order to create instantly the manifestation that you desire, you have to realize what's in the way of that first. Because honestly, we would all be knowing and living and breathing this concept, because this is one of the ones that's been secretly hidden from you for the past 6,000 years. And the reason why it's been hidden from you is because you would not fall easily to fear if you knew how powerful your mind, body, soul connection actually is. It's the triad of creation. It is the powerhouse that is the universe itself. And so if we're going to dive into sexuality and we're going to learn how to use our own personal orgasm to create form instantly in our lives, then first we have to understand what intimacy is. Now, for men and women, especially in society, it is very, very convoluted. Men have different outlook on sexuality than women, and even the way that men are built physically. They are built with the program that sexuality resides outside of them, which means that they are usually very visual creatures. They're stimulated from the outside and not the inside. They're stimulated, even their genitalia is on the outside of their body. So everything about sexuality, they believe, is an outside force, which is actually a logical concept, but keeps that energy very lodged in 3D. 3D is about action. It is about form. It is about time. And women are divine feminine energy. We are all focusing our love and our intimacy from the inside of ourselves, and we're feeling our feelings, and we're connected to the sensations. And if you realize the difference between sexuality for men and women, for men it's very physical, like more of a need, almost like a hunger. And for feminine energy, it is more like a divine emotional needed connection. It is a needed expression of connection. And that is where the paradigm shift has gotten us so messed up, because as a culture, men look at sexuality and love very different than women, and women get lost in the emotional side of it, and men get lost in the physical side of it. And I'm not saying men and women, I'm more saying masculine and feminine, because even in same-sex relationships, this is going on. Even if you share the same type of genitalia, there's still this battle that's going on between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And so what's happening in 2017 is the masculine is merging back into an alignment with its divine feminine, which is what you notice in collective consciousness. More men are staying home with children and being stay-at-home dads and working, and the mom is going out and becoming the CEO and the powerhouse. Well, the thing that's going to shift the most in 2017, what you're going to notice mostly in collective space, is women are going to inherit the earth. And I don't mean women, I mean the divine feminine, which means that we are going to rebirth our sexuality. We are going to be the perfect blend of feminine and masculine energy, which creates a intense powerhouse and desire that is born within us to create abundantly. And I don't mean that means that women are going to go out and, become promiscuity, they're not going to go out and become promiscuous. What they're going to do is they're going to demand intimate relationships with everything that they encounter. And so to understand what intimacy actually is, we have to break the word down. Intimacy is actually only about you. It isn't about sharing space with someone or something. It is actually about sharing the idea of yourself with something else. Into me, I see intimacy, which means when you get close to something, anything, and that doesn't mean a sexual partner. When you become intimate with anything, you become a collaborative aspect of your own consciousness, which means that you are mixing now with the temple in existence that someone else is sharing with you, and you are becoming one with that. And what happens is we get intimate with our wound mates. We get intimate with work and home and our bodies and ideas and three-dimensional, existence, and we get lost in that. And when we get lost in anything that is outside of ourselves, we lose the ability to see it properly, which is exactly why I have a job, because my job is to show the blind spot of what you can no longer see because you're so molded with other energies, which means that you've become so molded with the job that you don't know that you are the job. You don't know that you created the job. You don't know that you have a choice in the job. You are so melted in your relationship that you cannot see your true higher self's identity anymore, other than who you see yourself through your partner's eyes. And when that happens, when we lose ourselves in these intimate relationships that are not strong soul, higher self connections, then it is very difficult for us to find our way out of it. And there's, that's why messengers show up and angelics show up and synchronicities show up, because they are there to remind you that you have a voice and you have a choice and you have strength. And as we work through all this sacral energy, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be redefining our creative center and telling the universe exactly who we are, which is deliberate creators of reality. We are creating all of it, each breath, each thought, each feeling, and each action step that we take. We are generating and creating our reality. And the intimate relationships that you are lost in right now, that you're needing help with your blind spots, is totally okay, because you have created someone in your life to help you with the blind spot, which is exactly why I train life coaches, is because once you're commingled with energetic energy that you're intimate with, it is very difficult for you to disconnect or disengage from that energy to see yourself properly. So I want to kind of enlighten you on some relationships that you are having intimacy with that you might not be aware of. So you're having an intimate relationship with money. You're having an intimate relationship with your body. You have an intimate relationship with your job or lack of job, career, purpose, home, car, children, pets, relationships, family, spouse, or absence of all of those things. If you have the absence of all of those things, you are actually in a relationship of lack within those things, which means that you are in a relationship and you are having intimacy with the lack of the things that you desire. Take a breath. This one you might have to re-listen to, because in order for you to get to a higher perspective and really become aware of who you are, you've got to pull yourself out of the things that you're engaged and lodged in with, which means you don't know yourself until you remove yourself from something. You've got to get clarity. And into me, I see intimacy. You've got to get clarity on the character that you're playing with each and every one of those things in order for you to redefine and shift into a parallel reality that is more in alignment with your higher self, which means that if you're desiring anything, that means you are not in alignment with your higher self. Desire is the calling of higher self. So what you've actually got to do is pull yourself out and look at your life with the highest level of awareness that you can muster, and deliberately choose a different focus. And if you cannot choose a different focus and begin to move energy into that different focus, then that's where you have to do your shadow work. That's where you have to do some timeline clearing. That's where you have to take full responsibility and be in complete acceptance of the characters and the intimate relationships that you've been processing for probably a long time. Because you learn this reality by observation and practical application, which means the doing of life has also taught you just as much as your observations have. And so you've done things enough where you actually believe that's the way life is. But life is completely a blank slate. Only you give meaning to everything in your life, which means your house isn't good or bad. It's a house. You're defining whether it's good or bad. Your body is not good or bad, but you are defining, which means you're having an intimate relationship with each and everything in your life. And it's time for you to basically go in and create sacral energy. Dive into the sacral and build, become, download, and shift your vibration into the intimate character that you choose. Which means that if you were choosing the character of your true desired state of being, which is your higher self, what would money actually mean to you? What would it do for you? To me, it's like a hammer in a toolbox. It is only one tool that I use in my reality to create form, which brings me joy that I have manifested something that first was imagination. That's it. What does it mean to you? This is maybe where you want to pause this podcast and sit with yourself and do some automatic writing about your intimate relationships. And the first week in class, we dove into going through an experiment where everyone was made to look at their sexuality. What turns you on? What turns you off? What stimulates you and arouses you? Where does your mind go when you fantasize? What fantasies do you require to get your body into that turned on state? And these are all really important awareness factors, because in these questions that I asked in class, people were really able to find the wounding around sexuality. The human body can have an orgasm at 3 years old. And a lot of times babies and children are, just navigating their way through life and find that pleasure center and begin to experiment with that, and are criticized and judged, and basically anyone around them is completely freaked out, which now becomes their influence, and now they are getting their first taste of guilt and shame at 3 years old, when all they were doing is basically realizing that their body was becoming activated, and sensations and nerves and hormones were beginning to travel through their body, and their body wanted to do natural things. And so it is the objective of the collective that has basically pushed us into feeling that our own sexuality is guilty and shameful and humiliating. So we have pushed ourselves into moving away from our greatest form of manifestation by denying our own sexuality. The second part of class, I moved everybody into an experiment. And the experiment, after everyone looked at where they were sexuality, where their sexuality was, and really defined how their character was playing that sexual being, then we had an experiment in class to actually go and do this alone, unless you are with a completely embodiment of a soulmate. And if you are with a mate, it needs to be the exact same desire and manifestation that you're trying to intend. But what you'd actually do is you go into basically a state of masturbation, but instead of stimulating your body and then allowing your visualization to go towards a vision or a picture or a person or a memory or a scenario, you hold in your mind's eye the symbol of what you would like to create. So let's just say, to make this less dirty, I guess, let's just say that you are symbolizing wealth. And what that looks like is a vault full of money. And so what you do is you get a vault full of money in your mind's eye, and you visualize what the door looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like in there. Is the air cool? What does the money smell like? And it's got your name on it, which means that this belongs to you. And allow that sensation to totally embody you as you stand inside of that. And you ask yourself, in this moment of this ownership, who am I and how do I feel about myself? Like, what does this shift in me, knowing that this is mine, knowing that I in this moment have absolute freedom to go and be and do anything that I choose? And maybe that's the carrot or the symbol that you hold in your mind's eye, and then you begin to stimulate yourself. And as you begin to stimulate yourself, you do not let your focus go off of this feeling. You stay in the feeling. You stay in the focus. And as you're bringing that energy from your root into your sacral, through your solar plexus, into your heart chakra, into your throat chakra, into your third eye, into your crown, and you move into orgasm, okay? Because that's actually what's taking place, is you are creating in that frequency of divine expression. If you can hold the vision of the symbol that you are creating, the feeling, the embodied freedom and abundance that you're holding in your mind's eye as you move into climax, then what will happen is the body will be completely healed of any abundance and lack issues, because basically what you did was you did a complete 360-degree turnaround of all of the lack and freedom wounding that you held in your body, which means you hear me talk a lot on podcasts about cleaning up the body. The cellular memory is holding on to the trauma. All your old stories are vibrating at a cellular level. When you actually can climax with the sensation and the feeling and the generated concept of the identity and character that you are playing in that release, then in that breath, in that moment, you are free completely, which means your body is not going to go back on the timeline and remember who you've been unless you force it upon yourself afterwards. This is advanced level awareness and consciousness training right here. This is the sacred, ancient knowledge coming back. And this is for each and every one of us, which means for you to be able to hold that feeling throughout your entire experience, you've got to be free of some of your wounding, because your mind will direct you all over the place and pull you away from your vision, pull you away from your quantum focus, back into the body, back into the memories, back into the fantasies, back into the guilt and shame, back into whatever it is your mind goes during sexual experiences. And you will, 90% of the time, if you have a lot of sexual wounding, you won't even be in your body. It will be more of like an escape. You need to be completely in your body, which means while you're going through this experience, you are breathing deep, which keeps your spirit in the body. It keeps the intention that I am the deliberate creator of my reality, and I'm safe to be in my body, and I'm safe to have this experience, and I am not feeling guilt and shame and humiliation and fear in this process. So that's just a tiny nugget of what we're working on in class. But I want to tell you that I just left you with the greatest piece of your manifestation that you will ever need, which means if you're going to create your reality, you've got to learn about your body. You've got to learn about this instrument of a multidimensional goddess and God that you are vibrating in human form. And it is your time and it is your turn to take your power back and move back into the ability to show the world who you are. That knowing of who you are inside. It's time to express that to the world and give the world exactly the message of who you are, not who you want to be. It isn't about getting the money so that you can show everyone who you are. The money is you. The vault is you. Everything is you. And you're basically saying yes or no to everything in your universe. So it isn't about waiting for the right person to showing up. It is about allowing that version of yourself to show up and give you back a piece of who you are. So that covers the intimacy part, all right? And that covers the manifestation part. And as we move into our 2017 year, what you're going to notice is the women around you are going to be crawling to get free. Which means that if you're in a relationship with a woman or you are a woman, then I can guarantee you all you have on your brain right now is freedom and creation. Freedom and creation, which means that you're going to be wanting to move your body more. You're going to be wanting to use your hands. You're going to be wanting to celebrate with other women instead of being in a challenge or, in an ego-based relationships with women. You're going to start celebrating women. You're going to invent things. You're going to produce things. You're going to create things, because the repression that we are cleaning up from the sacral collective energy right now is going to peak out at such a high level that basically the divine feminine is going to be how this planet is healed and recreated very, very quickly. Now, in order for us to create anything, we need the masculine. We need the force. We need the action. We need the behavior. We need the persistence, and we need the strength. That's where our divine masculine really comes in. And so the embodiment of that goddess is both strong and nurturing. And that's what you're going to be noticing if you're in a relationship right now with a woman, is that she is becoming that force to be reckoned with. And if you are that woman, then that is calling you forth more than anything ever has before. And if you're a conscious, aware man, then what you're noticing is that you are learning about intimacy, and you're learning about where you've given yourself away and your power away for, a false identity of success or a false identity of power, and that isn't who you are. And if you're a man who's conscious and you're working through your own sexuality issues, then your only need is to open yourself up to the divine feminine and allow that energy within you to heal all of the past. Because if you've listened to my podcast before, I talk about the victim perpetrator role of the ego construct. And as we move into this new collective energy of the Christ consciousness, we are we are basically resurrecting the complete soul and disengaging the ego construct from our whole identities. And the ego construct is the power center of false identity, which means that, insecurity is housed by arrogance. So you can get the idea of how we're fluffing ourselves up to feel powerful when we feel weak. And men out there, it is very important for you to embrace that divine feminine. It is important for you. And what I mean by that is, you're not going to become women, but what you're going to do is you're going to allow yourself to feel. You're going to allow yourself to heal. You're not going to keep pushing things below the surface and suppressing everything because you have to show strength. The truest form of strength is vulnerability. And most of you have to surrender to this. It's time for you to surrender to this and just embody that divine energy that's flowing through you so that you can become that strength and powerhouse that you are also becoming. Because it will not be about women completely running the planet. It will be about the women who are going to nurture this planet back to life. And men, we are going to be nurturing that energy back to life. And men will be nurturing themselves for the first time and bringing themselves back to life. And this is absolutely gorgeous. This is the most amazing experience that we could be a part of at this time and space, in this dimension, in this reality. And during this ascension process, we are finding our way back to ourselves. And as we find our way back to ourselves, we have to basically remember, put back together all of the pieces that we have left behind and disengaged from and given away. And so as we move through these next 6 or 7 weeks, depending on how it's channeled throughout our workshops and classes, it will be basically a complete clearing of every single chakra system, because at the end of the day, the chakra systems become the holistic being. And we've cleared the root in the first week. We've worked through the sacral, and this week in class, we're actually going to be diving into the solar plexus. Because if you understand who you are as a creative being, you understand your own sexual divinity, you understand your own intimacy with everything that you are co-creating with, then as you move into your solar plexus, you are infinite power. You are infinite power, which means there is nothing in the root or the sacral that is going to stop you from becoming your higher self and delivering your purpose, which is love in all forms of service and creation and developing and protecting and healing and nurturing this planet back to life. And as we move into this next year, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to fall away, just like your wounding is going to fall away, just like your self-sabotage is going to fall away, just like your old habits and behaviors and routines and comfort zones will fall away. And none of that is bad. The ego looks at every loss as a failure. But everything you lose, every door that's closed, is pushing you into the doors and the rooms and the spaces and the circumstances that you have wished and dreamed for your entire existence. And so as the doors close, move out of the idea of failure and move into the idea of absolute expansion and knowing that everything that is happening for you, by you, orchestrated by the entire universe and collectively put together through synchronicities, opportunities, and events that will lay out to show you that you are infinite, that you are unlimited, that you are pure positive intention. And if you can hold those intentions during your sacred moments or during your 3D interactions with life, there isn't anything ever in this universe that could stop you from becoming and owning the frequency and vibration that you choose. So I'm going to leave you with this and let you know that I will be doing a series of sexuality workshops in January. And if anybody's interested in those, they can, get a hold of us through the workshop, the websites. And that is Transcendence Wellness Center, KC. And that is our website there. And all of our workshops and stuff like that will be listed as I develop them. The first one I'm doing right now is in January, and it's an Act on Your Intention, which is going to be basically a collaboration of everything I just worked through, yet much more deliberate creation and character redefining. Use a lot of method acting qualities, but also we basically disengage the ego through this process. It's a 3-day intensive, and it is not for beginners. So I'm just throwing that out there. Also, anybody who's ready to join the Academy, you are not going to ever be behind, because I channel for the collective consciousness. And so each class is channeled for exactly what every student needs. And it is the perfect place and moment for you, no matter when you join or where you are. And we do have some books coming out this year, so look for those. But I just wanted to leave you with this little bit of... I wanted to leave you with a seed of what's coming, because no matter what has to go away or what has to break down in order for you to be the greatness of who you are, surrender to it, allow it, and get to know yourself through every single thing that you're creating, and redefine and clean house. It's time for you to own this reality and create this reality and be the version of you who you feel in your heart when you close your eyes. So I'll leave you with that today, and I want you to walk in the direction of your joy every moment, every second, and it will lead you back to life.
Thank you for joining Jessica on this transcending episode. Email us directly at jessicaalstrom@gmail.com with your questions and personal challenges you would like addressed on the show. And join us on next week's podcast. You are not alone, and remember, your higher self speaks to you through people, places, circumstances, and events.